tonight's reality is that of influence. The reality of influence. Influence is the capacity to have an effect on the character, development, or behavior of someone or something. So today, when you use the term influence, what is the first thing that somebody thinks of when you hear the word influence or the root word influence? What is the first thing you think of? Influencer! Yeah, everybody's like, yeah, I want to be an influencer. I want to go on YouTube, or I want to be my social media person, and I want to go sell my vlog and my blog and everything else and sell my products to everybody I can. Because why? There's a lot of money. Yeah, there's a lot of money in influencing. That's right. Well, realistically, though, when it comes to influence, before the influencer terminology was ever there, the idea of influence is the idea of having an effect on somebody's character, disposition, or behavior. Now, today, everybody has influences in their life. Everybody has influences in their life. Some, I'd like to illustrate it this way. So I need a couple of volunteers for tonight. Let's take Camden for a second. Camden, come sit here for a second. Camden, you are going to be my everyman person for a second. Every person is symbolized right here. Influence. There are certain influences that you have no choice about, but you're automatically stuck with. Now, for a second, can I have let's have Brother Lance and Miss Brianna come up here for a second. Come on. All right. So, what are two influences in your life that you have no choice about if they get to be an influence or not? Parents. Good. So the only parents in the room that I know of are Brother Lance and Miss Brianna. So everybody else, don't tell me. Now, for this situation, so Camden is our everyman, and these are going to represent his parents. You can't choose who your parents are. You can't choose what kind of influence they are. Now, it would have been probably more appropriate to put Brooklyn up here, but I don't think Brooklyn would have appreciated this, so it's okay. How about this? Let's get Brother Rich come up here, would you, real quick? Brother Rich is going to represent represent the kind of person of a coach. So we got a lot of people that play a lot of teams. Okay. Now, Brother Rich is going to represent a coach. You can't pick the coach that pictured the coach on your team. You say, well, yes, I can. Well, maybe in college when you kind of get to choose who you want to play for. If you want to play for like a Nick Saban or like what's the dude from Shane Beamer or someone like a Shane Beamer? You know, you can choose if you want to choose to play for somebody like that. You can do that. But at this point and at this stage of life, you don't get to choose your coach. Your coach is chosen for you. How about this, Miss Cindy? Go ahead and come on up here. Miss Cindy is going to represent your teacher. Perfect. Hold up. So your teachers, you don't go and stand there. You don't get to choose your teachers. In college, you get to pick classes that you have teachers that you like and you don't like. But at the end of the day, your teachers are ultimately decided by somebody else. And these are influences that you have no control over, per se. But you do have influences that you do have control over. I'd like to see Noah come up here since you're here. We're going to call Noah and Camden. You guys have been friends for how long? Okay. No. Don't speak up. You guys stand up. All right. Okay, stand up. All right. So Noah here is going to represent the BFF. Okay. Noah's going to represent the Camden's best friend, and everybody has that friend, right? Everybody's got somebody that's like, that's my BFF. Now, so then you've got, I got my notes here. I have a list of things here. Your best friend generally has an impact on the choices that you make. How about this? The media. Let's find somebody who's very media oriented. Reagan, yes, come here, Reagan. Yes. Actually, no, Reagan has to represent siblings. Come on. Actually, this would actually fall under. She would actually fall under influences that you can't control because they're part of your family. But siblings are going to start right here. I need let's see, Josiah, come here. Josiah is going to represent media. Okay, so media is an influence that you get to choose. Media is an influence that you get to choose. And so there are certain things that, influences that you put in your life that you are kind of stuck with until you die. And then there's other influences in your life that you get to choose. And that's actually most influence. Most influences in your life are influences you choose and give invitations into your life. So when you have people like, for instance, now you have siblings and you're kind of stuck with them, but some people choose to be close to their siblings and other people don't choose to be close to their siblings, right? Mm-hmm. Some people choose to have a best friend, but occasionally you got somebody who doesn't really have a best friend. Some people, and actually everybody, chooses what kind of media, what kind of music, what kind of things they put and listen into the kind of voices that are doing this. Now here's the thing though. When it comes down to Camden, he's our everyman, and he's trying to listen to his parents, and he's trying to listen to his coaches, and he's trying to listen to his teacher, and he's trying to listen to his best friend, and he's trying to listen to his siblings, and he's trying to listen to the media, and he's trying to listen to all these people. It's ultimately going to affect him. So as he's trying to make decisions, it's going to be constantly pulling. What does my coach think? What does my parents think? What are the people in the culture saying, in the media? What is all this saying, and how does it affect me? Now, I want you to illustrate this for a second. Let's say that Camden here understands that, maybe I shouldn't be listening to that kind of music. Or maybe I shouldn't be watching those kinds of movies. Or maybe I shouldn't be listening to that kind of social media influencers that are there. You know what you can say? You can say, media, I want you out of my life. Tell them to get out of your life. Goes down. If a best friend starts to make some stupid decisions, and if the best friend decides that he is going to try to pull Camden in his direction, and then Camden at that point can be like, hey, I don't need you. He can try to do that with a sibling, but he still has to see his siblings at Christmas, right? I mean, it's just the truth of it. But at the end of the day, the kind of influence that a sibling can have over a brother or sister. How many of you are older siblings? How many are older siblings? How many are younger siblings? Now, for the younger siblings, how many of you are going to admit that you looked up to your brother or sister at one point in time? That's everybody in this room. Listen. I want you to understand this. At one point in time, all siblings look up to their older brothers and sisters, and they generally repeat the same mistakes. And the thing is, though, if Camden is watching an older brother or sister, what happens is he can look at his siblings and be like, I don't want to turn out like that. That's not a choice that he can make that choice, and he'd be like, you know what? I'm not going to be like them, and I'm not going to make those kinds of choices. And he can tell his siblings, you know what? I'm going to love you and I'm going to respect you, but I'm not going to listen to your advice. So, Camden, what are you going to say? Bye. Get out of here. That's right. Great. Now, here's the thing, though. You say, well, why can't he do that to his parents? Why can't he do that to his parents? I think there's a Bible verse that deals with that, isn't there? Somebody tell me the Bible verse. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. You always have to find a way to respect your parents and obey your parents. And there will come a day when you are your own person, when you can be like, Mom and Dad, I respect your wisdom, I respect that, but I don't have to follow that. But at this time, in their situation and where you are, you don't have that choice. You can't be like, all right, Mom, all right, Dad, get out of here. You can't do that to your coaches. You know why? Because your coach is going to be like, get off my team. You can't do that to your teachers because your teachers are going to send you to the principal, and then you're going to get suspended, and then you're going to come back in and have to sit in the same teacher. There's certain things that are immovable, but the things you do have control over are the things that you are responsible for. Thank you. You may all sit down. Now, this leads me to a thought tonight. And the thought is this. The reality of influence is that who and what you allow to be a voice in your life determines the outcome of your life. Who and what you allow to be a voice and to have a voice over your choices and a voice over your behaviors is going to determine the kind of person you're going to become. And we can find this illustrated tonight with the life of Lot. I'd like you to see we're going to go ahead and go here for a second, assuming I can get this up. Sometimes this clicker does not want to work. Okay, here we go. Okay, that was a bad slide. Okay, so I'd like you to see first and foremost, as we get into context, in Genesis chapter 13, we find the man called Lot. Lot is Abraham's nephew. Now, Abraham was called out of the land of Ur of the Chaldees by God to a land that God would show him, and God said that He would give him a land. And when this happened in Genesis chapter 13, the Bible tells us that he took his nephew Lot with him. Now, Lot was at this time was probably a young. We're assuming Abraham is a little older at this time, so Lot would probably be in his 20s, 30s. He's got somewhat of his own possessions, some own property. Now, as Lot comes in, he finds that he's got his own. God begins to bless them with flocks. He gives them lots of sheep, lots of goats, all the things, all the blessings of the day. And as it's there, the herdsmen of Abraham and the herdsmen of Lot begin to kind of butt heads. This is all happens beginning chapter 13. And what happens, Abraham comes to him and says this, Lot, I love you, but we can't be in the same spot because there's too much conflict. So he says, how about we go our separate ways? How about you go this way, or rather you choose, you go down. If you go down, I'll go up. If you go left, I go right. Whatever you do, we'll just separate. We love each other, but we can't be in the same place because our families are just too big. And so what happens, as they're up on a mountaintop or wherever they are, the Bible talks about how that Lot looked towards the plains of Jordan, and specifically to the area of Sodom and Gomorrah. I'd like you to read here in Genesis 13. Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, and it was well watered everywhere before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest into Zoar. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east, and they separated themselves, the one from the other. I like, as we talk about this idea of influence, I'd like you to see first and foremost, what impacted Lot's decision is what had Lot's vision. Whatever had Lot's vision. I'd like you to see this. Number one, somebody tell me, who would have had the right to choose what land would be better for them to live in? Somebody don't know? Would have been Lot or Abraham?
Abraham.
Okay, why Abraham?
Because he was older.
Because he's the older, because he's a patriarch. Okay? So as Abraham is the older one, he has the right to choose which one. And Lot looks over here, and he begins to see all the good side over here, and instead of getting respectful, and instead of looking up and trying to figure out what his uncle wants, instead he says, hey, this is what I want. This place is awesome. This place is beautiful. It's got all the water, all the fields. Everything I would ever need is right here. Uncle Abraham, you can have the mountains. I want all this down here. Now, before he gets there, I'd like you to see this though. And Abraham dwelled in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelled in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent towards Sodom. I'd like you to see here, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. I'd like you to see, as Lot looked towards Sodom, I don't necessarily believe, even though it talks about the goodness of the land, I believe what's happening here is, as the culture of Sodom is known, I believe that as Lot looked that direction, he was leaning that direction. His vision was wanting something other than what his uncle Abraham had, so much that when it comes time that he looks towards Sodom, that he finally lingers towards Sodom. I'd like you to see here, as the people are wicked, the Bible says that he pitched his tent toward Sodom. That meant that he said, hey, Sodom's over here, I'm going to come over here and just kind of sit right next to it. Now, if you are known as a wicked city, and if you're known for your wickedness, and the wickedness of Sodom was that of homosexuality, that of which is an absolute atrocity in the eyes of God. As God sees this, and as this testimony is there, we find that Lot is right there. He says, you know what? I kind of want to lean over here. I want to figure out what's going on in the culture over here. And so he pitches his tent towards Sodom. And as he goes that direction, he begins to not just visit occasionally. Well, you know, guys, we got to go into town. We got to get some feed. We got to get some food for ourselves. We got to do all that stuff. Let's go ahead and go into Sodom. Let's go give Sodom our business. Let's go over here. Sodom is where we need to go. But it doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop with the looking. It doesn't stop with the lingering. Eventually, it stops with the living. I'd like you to see in Lot's situation, Genesis 14. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way, and they took Lot, Abram's brother, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed. Hold it. Before, it was he pitched his tents towards Sodom. Now, it says that he lived in Sodom. Hold on for a second. You see, the natural draw of man is the more influence we have, the more we're going to be like that. So as Lot comes, he says, "Hey, Sodom looks pretty cool. I'm looking over there. I'm just gonna kind of give me a sunroom that looks over here. Oh, by the way, let's go over here. Let's get some food. Let's kind of party a little bit. Let's do what we're gonna do. Sodom's a pretty cool place. I think I'm gonna buy an apartment. I think I'm just gonna move on in there." And what happens is he comes in here, he dwells in Sodom, and what happens is, as Sodom and Gomorrah is a wicked place, and it's testimony of wickedness, what we find is Lot is constantly moving towards wickedness to the point where eventually he becomes a leader in Sodom and Gomorrah. I like seeing Genesis 19. "And there came 2 angels to Sodom at evening, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face towards the ground." You see, when the Bible here talks about how he's sitting at the gate, this is the concept of him being like an elected official. So back in the days, in our day and time, if you've got issues, you go to the police. The police then be like, "All right, you got to go to court." Well, back then, if you had an issue, you went to the gate. And at the city gate is where a judge would sit, and the judge would help the issue. So essentially, think of Lot as a judge or a ruler. And so we find here, as he is coming in, as these angels come to Sodom and Gomorrah, and God is looking at the wickedness of man, as he's coming, Lot sees them, he realizes who they are, and he comes and he's trying to be like, "Hey, you don't need to go wandering around the city." Look, verse number 2. He said, "Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into the servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and she shall rise up early and go on your ways." And they say, "Nay, but we're going to abide in the street all night." And he, Lot, pressed upon them greatly, and he's convinced them. He's like, "No, you don't need to do that. You need to come stay at my house. Come be my guest." And they turned unto him and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and they baked them leavened bread, and they did eat. You see, what happened is Lot was leading in Sodom. Lot was trying to keep them from being in the streets. You say, "Why is that?" Well, we're not going to read the verses here, but if you were to read the next verses in Genesis chapter 19, verses 4 to 20, you would find how the entire city of wicked and perverse men had risen up against Lot's house and was trying to defile these men. It's a very horrible thought and a horrible story. But at the end of the day, this city was so wicked. When 2 guests and 2 people had merely come into the city, they were so wicked and perverted that they were trying to destroy them. And when you consider the kind of wickedness that was there, I'm telling you, and you find that Lot's not just living there, but Lot is trying to lead there, and he's trying to be a ruler and a judge there. That tells you some things about his judgment. It tells you that what you look at, and eventually what you begin to hang around, and eventually where you start to live and dwell and do like everyday things, and eventually you're going to think, "Hey, you know what? I have what it means to kind of turn this thing around." And so what happens is he tries to lead in it. And here's what I'd like to tell you though. Lot lost with Sodom. You see, in the end of Genesis chapter 19, the Bible talks about how that God brought the wrath of heaven upon Sodom and Gomorrah. In Genesis 19:24, "Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities that which grew upon the ground." The Bible talks about how that Lot that by the grace of God, he pulled Lot and his family and his daughters, he pulled them out of Sodom, but everything else that was in there was destroyed. It was destroyed because of the wickedness of those cities. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road tonight. When we're dealing with this concept, of influence, we have to understand this. All influence has an influence. Let me say that again. All influence has an influence. See, Brother Ethan, that's silly. That's so simple. Right. It is very simple. But we need to understand this. It doesn't matter how cool you think they are. It doesn't matter how innocent it seems. It doesn't matter how it is. All influence is influence. If you're hanging around somebody who's rebellious, expect some rebellious things and for you to be rebellious against your parents. If you're hanging around people who are talking bad, understand that you're going to want to have the urge to talk bad. If you're hanging around a bunch of people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing, expect the temptation and the possibility as you linger that you're going to be taking part in those habitual things that aren't good. Expect that those influences that are there are going to come in. You say, but it's just a little thing. It's just my social media. It's just an influencer. It's just a YouTuber. I mean, Brother Ethan, come on. It's just my favorite YouTuber. I watch this YouTuber every day. Well, this YouTuber is a sinner who needs Jesus and is obviously teaching against Jesus. You need to keep that YouTuber out of your life. You say, what about my friends? Yeah, your friends are influences. Your friends are influences. I want you to think about this for a second, guys. Your friends are going to dictate your future. It's very funny. When I was running camp and every youth situation, you automatically know who the outliers are. It doesn't take very long. You say, why? Because they always find each other. We could double our crowd. I could have a whole bunch of people in here who I didn't know from Adam, and in a matter of 20 minutes, all the people who don't want to obey the rules, who don't want to listen, and all the people who are going to be rebellious and be a thorn in my saddle for the rest of the day, are going to find each other in 10 minutes. It's going to happen every time. You say, how is that possible? Because your influences cause you to look out for those things. How your behavior, and here's where it's at. I believe wholeheartedly that what happened to Lot was simply he let the influences around him dictate his future, and instead of listening to the godly Abraham who was in his life, he left and separated himself from that. He didn't keep the connection there, and you'll find in the story of Lot and Abraham that Abraham had to rescue Lot quite a few times. And every time that Abraham tried to rescue him and tried to help him and tried to save him, Lot kept going back to Sodom. And here's my question for you. This is what Peter tells us about Lot in the New Testament. And delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked, for that righteous man, Lot, dwelling among them, and seeing and hearing, vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. The Bible says that Lot was righteous, but that he was vexed because of the wickedness he lived with. Now, if you're in public school, raise your hand. Public school is filled with a bunch of wickedness. If you're in Christian school, raise your hand. Christian school is filled with a bunch of wickedness too. Guess what? If you're homeschooled, raise your hand. Your homes are perfect. I'm just kidding. No. Homeschool has just as much potential to be wicked as public school and Christian school. And now I want you to follow this. Okay? The influences that were there, what you choose to put into yourself is what you're going to get. The old adage in the IT world was garbage in, garbage out. If you put a bunch of garbage in, expect to put out a bunch of garbage. If you put a lot of wickedness in, expect to act wickedly. If that's the kind of influence that you suggest and that you ingest, expect that you are going to put that same kind of wickedness out. Now, some of us would be like, or just for a second, how many of you know that there's things in your life that you're doing that you probably shouldn't do? That should be everybody, by the way. Okay, there's probably things that we do that we shouldn't do. All right, now think about this for a second. Whatever it is that's there, who in your life is doing that same exact stuff and is pushing you to do that? Think. Don't answer it out loud. So, whatever it is, you say, I know I'm doing something, I shouldn't be doing it. What is pushing you to do that? You say, well, maybe it's something you're watching. Maybe it's something you're listening to. Maybe it's a friend that you have. At the end of the day, somebody is influencing you to continue to do that stuff. You say, Brother Ethan, what do I do when I find it out? You take that influence and you say, get out of here. You say, why? Because at the end of the day, here's what God says. Lot, in his righteousness, vexed himself through the daily wickedness that was there. Now, each and every one of us are going to do things we're going to do things that we know we shouldn't be doing. And that's just part of the human life. And the human struggle is we're going to constantly struggle with sin. But I will tell you this. If you are having influences that are encouraging you to sin, get those influences out. It makes no sense to keep them. I'd like you to start here. So here's my question for you. What is your Sodom? What is your Sodom? I want everybody up here, I want everybody to listen and think for a second. No talking. What is your Sodom? You see, we can look at Lot and be like, oh man, Lot, you shouldn't have gone there. Oh, you shouldn't have bought your apartment, man. Oh, you shouldn't have lived there. You shouldn't have done that, man. You know it wasn't going to work. We can look at that. But here's the thing. God has identified that there's a Sodom in each and every one of us. And there's something that's influencing us, and there's something that is promoting us to do that which is thing, and it's calling us away from the Word of God, not calling us to come and get into the Word of God. And the question is what is your Sodom? Is it a person? Is it that manager or that boss? Is it that influencer that you watch? Is it the mentor that is in your school, whether it's a school advisor or just some person that you talk to? Is it a best friend forever or a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Can I tell you, if it's a person, that kind of Sodom is going to ruin you. That kind of Sodom is going to ruin you. Is it a dream? Is your Sodom is what's hindering and what is keeping you from doing that which is right and what is vexing your soul? Is the idea of, well, you want to make sure you have that job, or you have that dream car, or you have that house that is a lot bigger than the house you grew up in, or you have that top 10 there, that spouse that everybody says that you need to have, or maybe it's the fact that you got the biggest, the best award in whatever field it is, or maybe it's the position, the idea that you're no longer poor, but now that you're rich and you're a 1%er, or maybe it's the idea, the fact that you just want money. Guys, can I tell you, if you sell yourself in any of these things right here, this will ruin your life. It will ruin your family. It will ruin your spiritual life. You say, why? Because a job can't do it for you. The car is going to break down and depreciate. The house is going to burn down. The spouse might leave you. The MVP award is just going to rust away. The position will go to somebody else when you quit. And the money is just going to burn at the end of the day. Can I tell you when it comes to it, if your Sodom is a dream, the only dream that is going to last is the dream that the Bible says, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Maybe your Sodom is a hobby or a pastime. Maybe the potential is maybe what that influence that's vexing your soul is your social media. All right, let's just do a straight to fan. All right, I know at this point Facebook is not teens. Snapchat, raise your hands. Instagram. I don't even know the other ones at this point. TikTok, yeah, TikTok. Okay. All right. Hey, if you got social media, social media is going to try to sell you on something that is not real. It's going to sell you on philosophies. It's going to sell you on vainglory. It's going to sell you on a bunch of stuff that's not real. And what happens is, if you let that be your Sodom, if you let that be what you're looking for, if you let that be what it is, you're going to find out that it's just a bunch of wickedness. And it's not what God would have you have. Maybe it's some of the movies you're watching. I know we're just coming out of Halloween. And I know in the Halloween season and the scary season, there's a lot of demonic and there's a lot of satanic movies that are all over the streaming. And everybody's like, you gotta watch it, you gotta watch it. Guys, if you are participating in satanic, demonic entertainment, get it out! You say, why? Because that stuff affects you. That stuff affects you, guys. It ought not be that you're used to talking about conjuring demons and doing all that kind of stuff. Or like what they're talking about in Fortnite, how you can sell your soul to the devil. That's a bunch of garbage. That is a bunch of garbage right there. And here's the thing. We're giving our stuff to this, whether it's in our games, whether it's in our movies, whether it's in our shows. Some of us, in our music, have you listened to the idea that some of the demonic stuff that's happening in our music? Think of the things that are happening, like your favorite artists are there. They're getting arrested for horrible things. And at the end of the day, get this. If you're living for that, and if you're listening to that, if that's influencing you, you're going to go that direction. And here's where I'm at as a Christian. Are you willing to throw everything away for your Sodom? Are you willing to throw everything away? You know, Lot lost some son-in-laws, and Lot lost everything he owned, and Lot barely escaped for his life, and Lot lost his wife in all this. He lost everything. All because he decided to linger and look and live in Sodom. And guys, I really do believe that the moral of the lesson is this. God gives you opportunity to escape and gives you ability to get victory and to get out of your Sodom. But are you going to wait till the last minute when God has to drag you out? Or are you going to be willing to go when your Uncle Abraham comes and rescues you from a king that took all of your family and everything? Or are you going to wait till your Uncle Abraham's over here praying, like, Lord, if only 10 righteous people were in Sodom, would you spare them? Realistically speaking, guys, if there's a Sodom in your life, don't play with it. Pack the tents up and get out of there. Get out of the well-watered plains. Get out of there. It is not worth you ruining your life over something stupid and simple and wicked as a Sodom. With every head bowed, every eye closed.